Man, a lot has been going on in the UFC these past couple of days that I have been very, very excited to talk about with you guys. Not only do we got two huge matchup changes that I'm sure some of you may have seen, some of you may not have yet, and we got some big news with the UFC parting ways with USADA. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in this video is Paulo Costa was removed from the fight with Khamzat Chimaev due to having recent elbow surgery, which when they came out with Paulo Costa's surgery and that he had it very recently, it was pretty obvious that there was a good chance this fight was going to get called off, and rightfully it does. But the next matchup for Khamzat Chimaev is even better in my opinion. So much more interesting. He's taking on Kamaru Usman. My goodness, what a clash of styles. And I love this. I love this matchup because this is really going to test how good Khamzat Chimaev really is. This is really going to show where he belongs in this welterweight division. Khamzat Chimaev is still almost a little bit of a mystery. We haven't really seen him in that much danger aside from the Gilbert Burns fight. Other than that, he hasn't really been tested that much. So Kamaru Usman is going to be a really good test for him. We're really going to get to see how good Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling is, and we're going to get to see how good he really is in the stand-up department because as we all saw, Kamaru Usman in that first fight with Colby Covington, the clash between two wrestlers, where we were expecting it to be a wrestling match to see who the better wrestler is, they stood up the whole freaking fight and went to war. So this new matchup is going to be a fun one. I cannot wait to watch it. And speaking of new matchups, Charles Oliveira suffered a really, really bad cut over his eye. He was unable to fight Islam Makhachev coming up in just a couple weeks in Abu Dhabi. Now, thinking that Gamrot was going to be the backup, it's looking like they decided to go with Alexander Volkanovski. The rematch. The rematch we've all been waiting for, the rematch we've all been asking for. This is going to get interesting. Islam Makhachev went to Volkanovski's backyard in Australia, fought him, took home the win. A lot of people thinking Volk won that fight, rightfully so. It was a close fight. Could have gone either way, in my opinion. But Islam gets the win, retains the title. Now, Volkanovski heading over to Islam's backyard in Abu Dhabi. This is getting interesting. This is getting really interesting. In my opinion, I think it's a very smart move for Volk for taking this fight because if he wins, not only does he cement himself as among the very few double champions in UFC history, but also he cements himself as he's already one of the greatest featherweights of all time. But should he beat Islam and become a double champ? In my opinion, he cements himself among the greatest of all time, pound for pound. So not just featherweight, pound for pound. So this is a big step for Volk, right? And should he win, he gets all of this. And should he lose, hey, you took a fight on short notice against the number one lightweight in the world. So it's a win-win for Volk. So very smart on him for taking this fight. I am so interested to see how this one goes. Do you guys think this is going to be another close fight? Or do you think this time it's going to be a one-sided beatdown either one way or the other? This one is going to be fun. All right, so now moving on to the main topic of this video. The UFC is deciding to part ways with USADA. So the CEO of USADA, Travis Tygart, put out a statement saying, "We are disappointed for UFC athletes who are independent contractors who rely on our independent gold standard global program to protect their rights to a clean, safe, and fair octagon. The UFC's move imperils the immense progress made within the sport under USADA's leadership. The relationship between USADA and UFC became untenable given the statements made by UFC leaders and other questioning USADA's principled stance that McGregor not be allowed to fight without being in the testing pool for at least 6 months." So it's seeming like this guy is alleging that the UFC decided to part ways due to the UFC disagreeing that, Conor McGregor needs to be in the USADA testing pool for 6 months. But Dana White has come out and said that that's not why. That's bull crap. And, I'm sure there's a lot more behind the scenes that we don't know about, which I will also get into. But let's check out some of these comments. So let's see what some of these people are thinking. So we got one person saying, on the plus side, Vitor will be back in title contention. Now that's funny. Boy, things are going to get saucy. Jones about to become Thanos. He still got Chandler by TKO even with Conor on the juice. I guess he's what he's saying. Laughs in Uberim, Alistair Overeem making a comeback now that people assuming steroids are gonna be legal again. He said MMA with steroids, let's go. F it, Joe Rogan was right. Don't test. Just let the best man survive. But this is really interesting, right? Because you see a lot of people thinking that the UFC is going to go testless. You see a lot of people saying, the UFC is getting rid of USADA, so that means they're not going to be testing these fighters anymore. There's other anti-dope organizations out there, such as VADA. There's other ones like that boxing uses that can probably be more reliable. Check this out. So if you don't remember, allow me to refresh your memory. Remember this instance where USADA came in on Paulo Costa at 6 a.m. when he was trying to cut weight for a big fight? They hopped in, that morning of, and your sleep the night before is very, very crucial as a fighter, especially if you're cutting weight. And they decided to knock in the door and test Paulo Costa right before a huge weight cut for some reason. So, hey, that's a very good reason for the UFC parting ways. And another instance, I couldn't really remember and I couldn't really find it on the internet, but I do remember a little while ago where there was a fighter who got busted for a certain performance enhancing drug, and then fighters started getting busted for it left and right, front and center. And then USADA came out saying they don't really test for that performance enhancing drug, which is why they didn't catch it until now. But I remember when Dana White was saying like, yo, we pay you all this amount of money and you don't even do your job fully. Like, you don't even complete your job. There's still performance enhancing drugs out there that you don't test for. So that could be another reason why. Look, USADA has been good for the UFC. Drug testing in general has been really good for the UFC. But you can't deny that USADA has made some really, really bullshit decisions that have angered not only Dana White, but there's plenty of other people behind the scenes that are running the UFC that they pissed off too, including obviously Paulo Costa when they tested him at 6 a.m. when he was cutting weight or sleeping before he had to cut weight. So, they made some big, crucial, stupid mistakes. This isn't like a one thing, Dana's mad that they're not letting Conor fight right away. No, it's not that at all. I just think USADA, in most instances, they kept it professional, but there has been certain instances where they made some really, really big, dumb mistakes. And I think that's what led to them parting ways. And I think the UFC is probably going to go with someone or a company that's more professional, that's not going to make those stupid mistakes. That's all I think it is, right? If you're paying someone tens of millions of dollars and they still make stupid mistakes, but you can pay someone else tens of millions of dollars that's not going to make those silly mistakes, who are you going to go with? I don't think the UFC is getting rid of drug testing. I don't think so at all. I just think, once they're done, I think the UFC is going to partner with some other company, and then they're going to be the official drug testing company of the UFC. But I don't know. I think I find it very interesting that people, they see UFC parting ways with USADA, and instead of thinking like, okay, well, they're just going to part ways with them and go to some other anti-doping organization, they immediately say, okay, well, they're letting all their fighters take steroids now. No, I don't think that's the case whatsoever. But of course, I'm interested to see what you guys think about all of this. What do you think about the two new matchups? Who do you got between Kamaru Usman, Khamzat Chimaev, Islam Makhachev, and Alexander Volkanovski? Who you taking? Man, some big fights, some big news going on these past few days. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you all so much for the support. I'll catch you in the next video.